This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast with me, Ian Doyle. It's a special one which we'll get onto in a minute. Joining me though is our full-time Liverpool correspondent, both home and away. It's Paul Gorst. Hi Paul.
Hello Ian.
How you doing?
Good, yes.
Good.
We are rolling along, aren't we?
We always roll along
yes,
at the Echo.
Throughout the seasons.
And also joining me is Mark Jones. Hiya.
Hello.
How you doing?
You all right? Yeah, good.
This is the first time we've been on a pod together.
It is. It's my second one. I've done one with Paul before, but it's my first time in your esteemed company.
Thank you very much. See? He knows respect, whereas
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
not. You do not. You do not.
He doesn't know you well enough.
Exactly. Our producer Ian certainly has no respect for anybody. He's just nodding, shaking his head there. Now, what we're going to do, this particular podcast, we're going to go through, thanks to the help of LFC History, the greatest website known to man, as we know.
Yes.
Certainly digs us out of a few holes during the course of a season. We're going to go through Liverpool's top 15 most expensive players and have a look at how we think they fared. Obviously, they spent £450 million in the summer just gone, so there's going to be a concentration of some of the newer players, but we'll get onto them in a bit. But we are going to start with player number 15, and he is somebody who is in the current squad. His name is Ibrahima Konate, who signed for £36 million from RB Leipzig back in July 2021. Although the deal was agreed, I seem to remember, right at the end of the right in the May. So Konate, interesting one in the sense that as we're recording at the moment, we're a couple of months into the season. Konate been a bit in and out in terms of form this season, but just looking at overall, he's had a bit of an interesting time at Liverpool, hasn't he? Because you've got to bear in mind his first season that he was there. Paul, he didn't play a lot in the Premier League, ended up becoming a bit of a cup specialist and played in the Champions League final.
Yeah, it was strange, that wasn't it? He sort of chopped and changed, he being Jurgen Klopp, with Joel Matip. So Matip was the Premier League centre-back and Konate was the Champions League centre-back. I'm not quite sure what the thinking was there. I remember Klopp doing something similar with Mignolet and Karius in goal, which never really understood either. But Konate grew into it, shall we say, and by the end of that season he was first choice alongside Van Dijk. And was that the season when Liverpool won the domestic cups after the Champions League final and just missed out on the Premier League title with 92 Premier League points, I think. So he's almost followed up every good season he's had with an indifferent one. Maybe it's fair to say I think last season was his best so far as a Liverpool player, something which he readily admitted himself or claimed it. So far at the time of recording, he's not hit the heights of last season, has he? But has some of his underperformance been a bit exaggerated as well, alongside the general team's results and performances? I suppose you could debate that, but I think at £36 million, I think Liverpool triggered the release clause at RB Leipzig, didn't they? I think you have to say that was, in the modern era, a bit of a bargain, and he's proven to be a really solid, good centre-back alongside Virgil van Dijk, and we will await what his Liverpool future is. We're still a bit unsure, aren't we, at the moment?
Well, obviously Liverpool got to a Champions League final in his first season, which he played in, Mark, and won the League Cup again, won the FA Cup, and of course he's a centre-back who played nearly every game and on the way to winning the Premier League last season. So from that point of view, money well spent?
Yeah, absolutely. He was really good in that Champions League final as well, wasn't he? And just in that first season, I think there was a week where he scored in 3 games in a row. He was at home and away to Benfica, and he scored against Man City in the FA Cup. And that's the thing I always think with him is you want him to be more of a threat in the opposition box, I think, because he does get his head to so much, and he is so powerful. But no, £36 million, I think you have to say, 4 years on, he's been a good signing, and he's someone who, in the first 11 now, he is that pick alongside Van Dijk. Now we know there's questions around his future, and we know there's only 1 year left, or less than a year now. But his time at Liverpool, I think the good season, bad season thing is possibly true.
Broadly.
I think he's someone who I always think with him, he benefits from running the team, and I sometimes think with him, when you watch him, you sometimes know he's going to have a bad game from the first 5-10 minutes. And it might be, maybe there's a fitness thing there, because there's been a lot of fitness questions around him, a few injuries, hasn't there? So he's just sometimes got a certain movement about him that you think, oh, hang on, you might be on one here today. But most of the time, no, he's been excellent, and he was a key part of a team that just won the Premier League. So that's what Liverpool want from every player they sign, isn't it?
Just one final thing on Konate. Do you feel as though he's a player who benefits from having a leader next to him? Obviously, I'm talking about Van Dijk. And I know he was signed kind of with a long-term view of perhaps replacing Van Dijk. Do we feel as though, irrespective of what happens with his contract, he's probably not that kind of player?
Yeah, definitely. He does feel like the junior of certainly of that partnership. But I guess he's never really had anyone else next to him alongside, in his Liverpool career, the occasional partnership with Joe Gomez in a cup game or whatever it may be. But certainly Van Dijk has always been the leader of that tandem. And I guess that'd be the case with whoever was next to Van Dijk, really. You pretty much sign anyone on World Football and he would be coming in as the sort of understudy, wouldn't he, to the captain. So, maybe that's not fair of Konate. That's just the way it will always be as long as Van Dijk is there. But yeah, I think it's fair to say he has been someone who has, blossomed under that tutelage, shall we say, and remember Konate saying in January that his aim was to eventually be better than Van Dijk and learn from him every day, and he's doing that, I guess. I'm not sure he'll ever hit Van Dijk's heights, but yeah, there's the question of whether he, whether how much Liverpool should look to keep him at the club, I guess.
Now we're just going to decide hit or miss on all of these, and there's 3 of us, so we're going to get a deciding vote from me. Are we saying hit or miss?
Hit.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 3 hits. Okay, the next one up is the first one of the new signings. That's Milos Kerkez, 40 million from Bournemouth. Bit way too early to say hit or miss, but what we can do is just kind of discuss going forward in terms of, does he look like the player that is going to end up taking over from Andy Robertson as the left back? And I know he's had these difficult first couple of months, but he's still young. Was he 21? 21, so he's got a lot of growing to do. Do you see as though Liverpool have already made the right choice, or is it too early to say on that one?
Yeah, it's too early to say. I think going off his performances last season, you'd say that Liverpool definitely have got the right left back in to go and be the heir apparent to Andy Robertson for the next 10 years. Been a difficult few weeks for him. I said on a recent pod that I was worried about him, and I think he's got to show a little bit more that he's able to make the step up in not necessarily class, but just the demands and expectations are just so different, aren't they, when you're at a club like Liverpool compared to Bournemouth, with respect. But it's early days, you can't say one way or another, but yeah, he's got a fair bit of room to improve.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with all that. I think he's got the raw materials, hasn't he? He's got everything that you want from a modern attacking left back, and I thought he was excellent at Bournemouth. In a Bournemouth side that have a lot of good players, he was standing out in, and he did. I think we could all see it kind of partly through last season. You thought he'd be almost the perfect addition. Looking at Andy Robertson getting older and Tsimikas probably on the way out. So yeah, it's too early to say. But what you would say is it's not been smooth, has it? And that's probably the concern. And he's dives in a bit, doesn't he? He can be a little bit rash. That might be something that they need to take out of his game. You'd hope that Robertson, he'll look at Robertson, he can learn from him. But it's way too early to say. But it's just, as I think as it has been for a few of them, it's just a little bit of a slow start.
Yeah, so slow start, dives in a little bit rash. Needs a bit of getting used to. That leads us on to our next player, which is Fabinho. Now, he ended up, I think it ended up costing 43.7 million in the end, because obviously I think all the add-ons must have got triggered, because he was the little pick-me-up after the defeat to Real Madrid, wasn't he, in the Champions League final in 2018. Now, he did have a slow start.
Yeah.
I once gave him 5 out of 10 in a friendly, and then he never played again for about 2 months, and people still get upset by that, even though, Jurgen Klopp agreed with me. Let's put it that way. But overall, again, towards the end of his Liverpool career, there was kind of a natural end there, because he seemed to have just ran out of steam, hadn't he, basically? Which is, given the position that he played in, 5 years, wasn't it, in that particular position? Then ended up moving off to Saudi. But in terms of his overall Liverpool career, couldn't have overall gone much better, could it?
No. Sort of 2018, 19... maybe a good 2 years, 18-month period where he was probably the best holding midfielder in the world. Certainly the year Liverpool won the Premier League, he was absolutely outstanding. I remember him in, huge victories against Man City at Anfield. He scored that goal, actually. Just you could pick out loads of key games across that season, and he was instrumental, really. You know, what a midfielder. But it did take him time to settle, and I think a lot of people forget this now, don't they, with the benefits of hindsight. So maybe you could apply that to one or two players now, where you think doesn't necessarily mean that because you come in for big money, you're going to be automatically, you know, a top player overnight. It does take time to adapt and develop, and he was someone who did that, no question. Obviously, it ends in a bit of a strange way, almost shuffles off quite suddenly, doesn't he, with no real speculation, and then out the blue, it's, you know, he's off to Saudi. I think he was a little bit taken aback by Liverpool's openness to selling them at the time. I think he's revealed that since. But at his best, he was, you know, a world-class defensive midfielder, and you know, like I say, for 18 months to 2 years, probably not many better. So yeah, he was one who definitely worked out.
Yeah, I mean, at the start, he wasn't even getting in squads, was he? At one point, and wasn't there a game away at Arsenal as well, which he looked being particularly sort of ropey at the beginning, and it was all a little bit, well, what's turned up here, but no, he grew into that position, and I always think of him in that time, kind of around up to the Champions League final, and then the following year into the Premier League. That's the period of his career that you remember, and he just made. He kind of made the rest of the midfield work, didn't he? The way he staged himself in front of that back four, he helped the defence as well in terms of what he did. He was a threat sort of going forward. He used to have that little ball, didn't he? The little dinked ball that would go over to perhaps towards Mane or to Salah. You know, he'd pick out a pass pretty well. So yeah, very very modern. I think very modern defensive midfielder, and he you could say that a lot of the successes were built on him. I thought he was he perhaps won't go down in, you know, when you think about it, it was a 5 year Liverpool career, of which you'd say 2.5 years he was outstanding for. So perhaps he won't go down in, you know, the kind of legends of stuff like that. But he was a very good player for Liverpool. Yeah,
there was a period for me where he was just as important as Van Dijk and Alisson to the spine of the team, and you know, I seem to remember him coming on against Bayern Munich at the Allianz, and I think Henderson gets injured and he comes on quite early on, and you know, had a great game and helps Liverpool through. And yeah, you know, you look at what Liverpool won when he was a starting midfielder for them, and it's, you know, they won everything, didn't they? So yeah,
well, there was one game, and I'm just jogging my own memory, but I've checked now. There was one game in that season. Funny enough, the only Premier League game Liverpool lost was at Man City, and he was still in and out of the team, and he was on the bench. But when he came on, Liverpool became much better. And basically, since then, with the exception of one or two games, such as the Bayern Munich game that you mentioned, then he was more or less in the team then from that point onwards. Yeah,
he, like I say, really solidified himself as a world-class player, didn't he? And I remember him getting injured the year Liverpool won the league, 1920, and there was a bit of a shock, sort of, how Liverpool going to recover from this, because he was out for maybe 2 or 3 months, and just became a real, like I say, you know, a vital part of such a successful team under Jurgen Klopp.
And of course, he played centre back.
He stepped in at a time when there were no centre backs and did a decent job. So, and then towards the end, he was probably the one that you looked at and thought, you know, that almost like the legs had fallen off the team a little bit, and he was the one that perhaps something about his style, maybe just you could see it. He wasn't doing the same things he always used to. But no, a very good addition over that.
There was the just to sort of sum up that period for him was the picture of him against Brighton. He comes on, he's only been on a couple of minutes, and then he makes the foul, and he's just an apologetic hand up while he's on the floor, having made a rash tackle and got away with it. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, he was brilliant.
So we're saying hit.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell you who never gets 5 out of 10, who always gets 10 out of 10. It's NordVPN. It is, yeah. They're our sponsors. And to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link will also give you 4 extra months. 4 extra months, Paul. Not 2, not 3, but 4. On the 2-year plan, there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box, which you can find below if you're watching or listening, actually. So either or, doesn't really make any odds. Next up, I'm pretty sure we're not going to take too long on this play. Mohamed Salah, signed from Roma for, what was it in the
37?
end? 37, I think.
36.9.
I think it maybe. I think
some add-ons in there.
We're saying 43.9 in the end.
Oh, okay.
And that
either way, it's probably worth it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, all right.
Yeah, he's
right.
fine.
Yeah.
Still got something to prove.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. He always feels as though he has. No, he always finds something that he feels as though he's got a point to prove. Like last season was probably the Ballon d'Or, which let's be honest, he was never going to win because he doesn't play for Real Madrid or Barcelona. Then again, a Paris Saint-Germain player would it? But he used to play for Barcelona.
The greatest Liverpool transfer in the Premier League era for me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. In terms of value, in terms of influence, in terms
of... I mean, he's been the top scorer every season in a period that has only been rivaled by the 1980s in terms of success across a sustained period. Top player, uber professional, role model, everything you want to say about him. He is top class, isn't he? So yeah, I mean, you can have the debate over who was better, him or Luis Suarez and whatever else, and maybe the aesthetics would say Suarez, but for me, Salah has been an incredible player across a real sustained period now, and one of the greatest ever.
It's a long time, isn't it? It's a long time that he's been here. And yeah, you just go right back to when he came, and we knew him from Chelsea. We knew him as the winger who didn't get much of a chance under Mourinho. He was on the pitch the day of the Chelsea defeat when Gerrard slipped. He was on the pitch for Chelsea that day, one of his few appearances for them. So you knew him from there, and he'd obviously gone away and he proved it with Roma. And there was obviously lots of talk around, and you still hear it now about how Jurgen Klopp wasn't sure about him. He wasn't his pick necessarily. So you take all that, and I mean, how many transfers have we seen over the years that don't work out? And you're talking about someone who's still here over 8 years later, and everything he's achieved, everything he's become. He third now in the all-time list, all-time scoring list. I mean, that's another thing. He'll be chasing. He'll never get number one, I'd imagine. Ian Rush is a bit too far ahead, but
says the Welshman.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I've got to get him in somewhere. Is he on there? No. But he, everything he's done, and I think Paul's right. Really, everything he's stood for over. He's been the symbol. He's been the face, hasn't he? He's been the face of everything for most of this past decade, and he's certainly a Liverpool legend now.
I mean, the interesting thing for me is that he came. There wasn't really. I don't ever remember there being much pressure on him when he first started. It was like he was a.
I remember thinking he'd be a good understudy for Mane.
He was a club record sign. He was a club record sign, and I don't really remember there being like a lot of.
Because Mane had played on the right the season before, hadn't he? And I remember thinking, he's had a good season, but it'd be nice to rest Mane now and again. Oh, there's this lad who's used to play for Chelsea. Yeah, he'll do.
The other thing about Salah is that because obviously this is his 9th season with Liverpool, he has had to evolve into several different players. And there's every chance that over the course of this season now, he's obviously got another season after that, he'll have to evolve further again because he's now 33 and he's, we're not getting any younger, are we?
Yeah, well, this is his third sort of forward line that he's playing in, isn't it? You think of the iconic trio now of Mane, Salah and Firmino, and then he adapts his game to play alongside Nunez and Diaz. Obviously, Diogo Jota's in and around that time as well. And now it's Isak, Ekitike, Gakpo. So he's had to develop his game again, and I think this might be the most challenging development for him because Isak in particular has been bought with a view to life after Salah, which has never really been the case with anyone else who's come in. So it's always been that these players serve as Salah essentially, and of course he's creative and he gets assists himself, but now he's having to adapt to an eventual time where Isak is the main goal scorer of this football club. So Salah's never had to do that before, so we'll have to change and adapt and develop. But I think he's shown enough over the last particularly 2 seasons that he's just as much of a creator as he is a goal scorer now, and he will have to do that for the next 2 seasons.
Are we saying hit then? Possibly?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. Next one's Cody Gakpo. Signed from in a £44 million deal from PSV. It was completed early January, but I seem to remember me and you walking up a very big hill on Boxing Day at Villa Park and being aware of what was going on. So, interesting one for Gakpo. He's another one who took a little while to settle. Obviously, he was coming into a team that wasn't performing particularly well. But he's played in 2 very definitive positions, hasn't he? Because that season, and possibly most of the rest the following season, he was playing centre forward for the most part, but last season he was playing on the left wing where he played a lot of the time for PSV and plays for Holland. Yeah,
Klopp tried to reinvent him into a bit of a Firmino Mark II, didn't he? And it didn't quite work, to be fair. He has a bit of a difficult first few months at Liverpool, not necessarily all down to him. He comes into a team that's struggling in the second half of that season, out of position, new country, step up in league has been quite intense. So didn't really hit the ground running, did he? He scores against Everton, I think, and he scores 2, and that's 7-0 against Manchester United. But not too many other highlights until maybe the following season. But since Slot's come in, he's basically stuck him left wing, hasn't he, and stuck to it. And he's looked a different player. You know, you look at how his importance has grown over the last 12 months. He's become a real focal point of that attack on the left side. And what was it, 17, 18 goals last season as Liverpool win the league, 13 possibly in the Premier League. So, yeah, he's someone who is growing in influence, I think, within the whole squad.
Scored some important goals as well, doesn't he? I think he scored against Everton, United. I think there's one or two others that are big games. He a bit like Dirk Kuyt in that way, where he liked a big game. But Gakpo, he's a player that I think because of his size and his stature, it's a little bit hard sometimes to pigeonhole him, isn't it?
Yeah, but then when the best thing that could happen for him was when Slot came in and Slot saying to him, "You're playing on the left."
Yeah.
And obviously we saw last season that he'd moved Diaz into the centre a few times. He never did that with Gakpo, did he? And I think that was telling. And obviously Slot had seen him play in Holland and he'd seen him sort of emerge as a young player there. And I think there were a couple of players, and Gakpo's definitely one of them, that during last season it was almost like it dawned on them that we're champions, we're going to be champion footballers, you know. And I thought he was really one of them. But I thought Szoboszlai was another one that you see it in him now. They almost get bigger, they grow, and they look like they look the part. And he was. I mean, he's perhaps not everyone's favourite. He's perhaps not the silkiest or anything like that. But he'll put an effort. You know, he'll put a shift in for you, and he can score a goal. And he's become a very important part of the team now, especially with Diaz gone.
He's strong as well, isn't he?
Powerful, yeah. When he gets going, there's loads of examples of him turning and running at defenders and shrugging them off, and he can shoot from distance as well. That's one of his real strengths, you know, cutting in off that left flank and getting his shots off. And if anyone's seen his recent goal for Holland in the international break, it was very much, you know, trademark Cody Gakpo in that fashion. So yeah, he's got that little move, hasn't he, where he cuts inside and clips it to the back post, and normally Mo Salah's alive to it. Hasn't had a brilliant start to this season at the time of recording, but yeah, he's, like I say, someone who is growing in importance, and a brand new contract signed recently. So, yeah, someone whose best years are ahead of him.
Hit or miss?
I'm giving him a hit.
Yeah, I'm going with hit. Now, next up in, I think it's 10th place, if I can count, is Diogo Jota. Signed for, I think it was 45 million, the deal in the end, from Wolves, September 2020 up. Now, obviously, we know the tragic events of this summer, but Liverpool are missing him as a player as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, you can't quantify what they're missing as a person, because he was so well loved from the playing staff to every department, everyone you've ever spoken to who knew him at the club. But
even the journalists.
Yeah. But as a player, yeah, of course, he was such a goal poacher, wasn't he? Left foot, right foot, headers, brilliant finisher, tigerish work rate. He had a lot that you want from your number 9 leading the line, and you know that those 3 defeats in a row, how that might have been different had they been able to call upon Diogo off the bench or whatever. But I think the team are still trying to process what has happened there over the summer, and you know, only the people on the inside will know the impact that it's having. But yeah, just an absolutely tragic incident across the summer, which is, you know, taking him as a player and as a person from the club.
Jurgen Klopp used to say that when he was asked who was the best natural finisher at Liverpool, he'd always say Salah. But there's a strong argument for when Jota was there that it was him.
Yeah, you put him in front of goal, and it wasn't always the smoothest finishes. It wasn't always, you know, beautifully put in the corner like maybe Salah would, but he would get it on target, and he would normally put his foot through it, wouldn't he? And it was like this ball, and I love the way, even before that, I loved the way he used to get the ball and just run through people.
Yeah, there's been many goals where he's just basically
he would just decide, right, the goal's there, I'm going to go over there, and he was so good at that, and everything, and I think after the tragic events, I think one of the things that you looked at, or I certainly saw a lot of, was the Wolves supporters and how they respond. Obviously, he got them. He helped them get them promoted, and he was just as much loved there as he was here. So that again tells you a lot about the character of person he was. So in terms of missing him now, I think any team would miss a player like that.
I mean, I know it's an easy thing to say, but supporters respond to what they see as effort. And if there's one thing that Diogo Jota always gave, it was 100%, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was no frills to him, was there? No sense of ego, and that helped him on the pitch because he was willing to essentially roll up his sleeves and dig in. And it was the same when he was in the Championship with Wolves. I remember speaking to someone over the summer, and they were talking about how much he knew about the Championship's defenders. You think this lad from Portugal at the Songos, who's playing in the second tier with the ability and the ambition to eventually move higher, but he knew who all the opposition defenders were. He was a real student of the game, and just
probably played against them on FIFA.
Yeah, and there is that as well, of course, Football Manager and FIFA and all that. But yeah, he was just like you hear some of the tributes that are being paid to him from his teammates, from his colleagues, and whether that's publicly on social media, whether that's privately in conversations that you've had with people, and everything just comes back that he was an absolute top fella.
I mean, he did once go a year without scoring, which people sometimes forget, but it says a lot about how valued he was at the time by the managerial, the coaching staff and the players, that they stuck by him, and there was never any thoughts of
there was never any question.
You never question of leaving or anything like that.
No. It was just the injuries, I guess, wasn't it? They were the questions at the time.
And there was a time when, around about that time, would have been early 2022, would it? When the game away at Arsenal in the League Cup semi-final, when he goes there and scores twice, and I think Salah was away at the African Nations at that point, and the team relied on him, and he led the line, and he was the main man, and whenever he was called upon to do that, even in the past season, he would deliver that. He scored the winner against Everton. Like he would embrace that, and he loved the big goal, didn't he? And he would deliver when the pressure was on.
So we're saying hit, I'm assuming, yeah. All right, the next one is Luis Diaz, 50 million from Porto, right before the deadline, January 2022, when we'd all written Liverpool won't sign anybody, and they made us look stupid. Thanks for that.
Blame Tottenham for that.
Yeah, well, normally I try to blame Tottenham for most things, let's be honest. Now, Diaz, again, an interesting one in the sense that he's leaving this summer. There's been a lot of revisionism about Diaz whenever he's played for Liverpool. Like it was last summer, everyone was going, he's not very good. Let's get Anthony Gordon in. This minute Liverpool went with Anthony Gordon, which obviously they were offered him, and it never came through. But personally, I always thought Diaz was great. And I know a lot of people thought, I didn't get the numbers, but you go and have a look properly. Certainly from, I think it was Boxing Day at Burnley, 2023, I think it was. From then for 18 months, he was just, regular, getting assists and goals, and from a number of different positions again, like a lot of these other forwards that we've mentioned.
I think this might be the first player where we have a bit of a split decision to make on
this. Right, okay.
I don't know where I stand, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think Liverpool got an incredible fee for someone who's going to be 29 in January, I think, £65 million. For someone who come in for, initial 37. His style of play meant that if there was an end product every single time that he had the ball, he's one of the best players in the world, which is why sometimes you can't accept it didn't always come off for him, because he was so direct. He loved to take on his fullback, beat a man, get a shot off, get a cross in. Typical almost South American winger, wasn't he? But he had the sort of...
What's a typical South American
Well, like Luis Diaz, get the ball, direct dribble, all the sorts of things to get you on the edge of your seat as a football supporter, as a football watcher. But he had the mentality to go with it. I remember him dragging himself off the bench at Luton after his dad had been kidnapped by that whole crazy storyline, and he gets the equaliser with a bit of a brave header, from what I can remember. So he had that to go with his game as well. I thought he had his best season at Liverpool last year. Plays two positions, doesn't he, off the left and through the middle. That hat-trick he scores against Leverkusen in the Champions League was when he was playing through the middle, and I think everyone thought that Slot had stumbled on a bit of a gold mine there, but it's sort of diminishing returns as the season went on. But yeah, I think there's a real debate to be had here over whether he was, if it's just a black or white hit or miss thing. I think we can have that debate.
But we're having it now.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So well,
he's hit for me. Yeah. I really liked him, and he acclimatized to the club really quickly. I thought when he first came in, in that January, I remember he'd played, hadn't he, for Porto at Anfield the month before in that Champions League game, and I thought then he looks a decent player, but he quickly came in and he brought something different. He brought a real fearlessness. You say about the header at Luton. Do you remember the way at Brighton, one of his early games?
He's
Sanchez, wasn't it? Robert Sanchez absolutely took him out, and he just had that fearlessness about him. And at the time, I thought, okay, we'll see where he is in a year or so. But I thought he really settled into the side, and end product was the thing that everyone always labelled at him. But yeah, I mean, in this past season, he delivered for me. He was.
Well, he was another that got injured, didn't he? Got the knee injury at Arsenal, and then he aggravated it as well.
Yeah, done him, didn't he?
That was right in front of us, wasn't it?
Old school sense, and then he has to go under the knife. He goes to Dubai in the training camp and then pulls up again. Has to have a surgery. Is he ever quite the same player again after that? I think there's some questions you can ask about that, but I suppose ultimately he was man of the match in the League Cup final.
Yep.
When he beat Chelsea on penalties. Played really well in the semi-final later that season.
Against City.
Yeah.
There's a lot of him running around Wembley, isn't there?
In
his Liverpool career, there's a lot of him just at Wembley running into space.
The sun beating down and running about. But yeah, leaves as a Premier League winner, and in fact won every domestic cup at Liverpool in 4 years, was it?
So were you talking yourself out of him being a failure?
I think there's something in the. I think there is something in the deal, the sale being, if you want to talk the business side of it, I think there is something in that, and getting good money for someone who, as you say, is he about to be 29. So there's definitely something in that. I'm of the opinion though that I wouldn't mind him in the squad now.
I think they would have kept him in the squad had they not also kept Van Dijk and Salah, because you can't have lots of players who are outside of the FSG model getting paid an absolute fortune.
Well, they did offer him a couple of contract extensions, which he turned down.
Which
I think
obviously
maybe he wanted more money. He was, he sounded happy to stay whenever he spoke on international duty or whenever it may be, but I think he was looking for something more in line with what he felt was his status within the squad. Maybe Liverpool felt otherwise with the amount of new players earning big money that were coming in.
Well, I'll tell you one person will be happy he's left. That'll be whoever takes his dad's ticket in the away end, because he was always there.
He was, yeah.
So, are we saying hit or miss?
See,
You've got to pick one.
At the
You've
risk
got to pick
of
one.
just saying every player's going to be a hit because Liverpool have had a.
Oh, don't worry, don't worry. We got some more to go. Don't worry about that.
We've got a few misses on the way over.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well I'll go hit.
He's hit.
Yeah, undoubtedly for me.
Hit, and I agree. I think he should still be there, but I can understand why he's not.
Yeah, I do get it.
Yeah, it's a shame really, because I think Liverpool are a better team with him. Now, next up's Naby Keita. Naby Keita, who was signed from RB Leipzig for 52.75 million. He arrived in July 2018, but he actually signed, I think it was August 2017.
August bank holiday.
Yes, August 2017, and seem to remember it was one of those ones where then Liverpool fans spent the entire year looking forward to seeing him join, and then the minute he joined, they weren't interested anymore. Which is a little bit of a harsh way of looking at it, but Naby Keita, I mean, Paul, I'll let you go first.
That turn against Crystal Palace, remember that one? That was unbelievable. When he
and
joined,
then a great pass as well after that.
When he joined and Liverpool beat West Ham 4-0 on his debut, you thought, what have Liverpool got here? This is the all singing, all dancing, midfield maestro that they thought they were getting. And on his day, he was fabulously talented, wasn't he? It was clear to see, but that day started to come less and less often, didn't it? Injuries were always a problem. You wonder about how much, people say players are injury prone. You wonder how much he was willing to put himself through that pain barrier. I've heard stories that, he slept on a flight home from one of the games. He slept in one of the sleep pillows that you have on a flight, and then complained of neck injury after that. And you just wonder whether he had that mentality to really push himself to the limit in search of, being a top player or whatever else. But brilliantly talented, but injuries were never far away, really were they? And I think probably the thing that might sum up his time at Liverpool was...
I know what's coming. Is it Norwich?
No, not Norwich, but that is a perfect
yeah,
example.
Yeah.
He kicks the floor,
Yeah.
goes off injured at half time. Playing really well, kicks the floor as he goes to make a pass and goes off injured.
Is it United? Then?
No, I was going to say...
There's loads of it.
His last appearance...
I know where you're going.
I think
where you're going.
Was in a goal to straw at Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
He gets taken off at half time, never seen again.
Yeah.
And no one ever really questions what happened after that. It was almost just like, oh, well, he's out of contract.
They just give him the time, I think.
And I'll never forget when he scoffed at me as well at Brentford.
He scoffed at you?
Scoffed at me. Liverpool had just been beaten handsomely
3-1
at Brentford. Nabby, 2 minutes. He talked through that shambles and he just hadn't say that.
He ruffled in your face.
He scoffed in my face and walked on as though he just scored a hat-trick and very unbecoming.
There's a question. How many games did he play for Liverpool?
So we're going, 5 years?
5 years.
Don't
take too long over this.
100 and... I got a little bit more, 150.
Oh, split the difference, 129. And for a player who arrived with a big reputation for creating goals, he only got 6 assists.
Yeah.
Which is, I was surprised just checking that.
I've got a little to say about that, though. I think, he signs the year before, and you got to think about what happened in that year. The year between him signing and then joining. The fullbacks became a thing. Trent became a thing. Andy Robertson became a thing. And all of a sudden, that was where the creativity was coming. And the midfield was functioning, which was Jordan Henderson, James Milner, Wijnaldum. Those type of midfielders were what was making the team work. So he kind of signed as this, it's going to be the new Coutinho. You know, it was that idea, wasn't it? He's going to be this great creative player. And I think he summed it up. Like, on his day, he could do these things. He did have some great games, didn't he? You know, he had some fantastic... He scored a couple of big goals and we're going against Porto in the Champions League.
FA Cup semi-final in City, that was probably one of his,
his
best
well.
days.
Yeah, him and Thiago, wasn't it? Yeah, he played well in that game. But that would only add to the frustration because you wouldn't see him a couple of weeks later, or he'd have a poor game against someone and he'd disappear from view. So, he ultimately... He is going to go down, I think, as the first miss we're going to do because of the fee. I think he has to.
Yeah.
Well, what I would say on that is Jurgen Klopp still very much liked him. He started the semi-final against Barcelona, the first leg, and he went off injured, typical. Yeah. He played in the semi-final and final of the Club World Cup, and he scored in the semi-final. Yeah. In the Champions League final in 2022, comes off the bench and has a great shot towards the end. Yeah, but he did. But he did start the semi-final second leg against Villarreal, where obviously Liverpool nearly messed it up. Yeah. I'm just double checking. He obviously his big game you mentioned of the FA Cup. Yeah, he started both the semi-final and the final. Had his best game.
You would call upon him.
He started the league.
Was injured, was he? Is that right?
He started against Chelsea, because Thiago got injured in the warm-up.
That's right.
And
managers do have certain players like that when they're fit. I remember you used to think that with Rafa Benitez and Harry Kewell. It was always like if he was fit, he's playing. Yeah, and he sometimes would become unfit during the game. But managers do have that, and I think Klopp would have seen that in him. He obviously had seen him in Germany before when everyone was excited watching him sort of play in the Bundesliga, and everyone was couldn't wait for him to get here. So. Maybe Klopp saw it as his, this is my project. I have to get it right. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out.
Miss then?
Miss.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate miss. Even though we ended up winning practically everything. Yeah. And he played quite a lot when they won the league that season as well. Dominic Szoboszlai, as he's meant to be pronounced, that's correctly, isn't it? Yeah, he's next. 60 million from RB Leipzig. Another one from the German side. He's the third one actually on this list. But another one that they weren't necessarily initially interested in, were they?
Well, I think...
In terms of signing immediately?
I think at the time, it was almost like spinning plates and seeing what could be done in terms of financially and availability. So Liverpool earmarked Alexis McAllister very early on as someone who they felt they could get in. So they get him in early June. Ryan Gravenberch was a long-standing target, but they were unsure as to whether he wanted to move from Bayern Munich, and finally... He realised that he did when I think he didn't get on the pitch in the Super Cup, was it, in August, and then Liverpool do that deal late. So in between those two, there's a lot of which player is going to be a good fit, and there was talk of Mason Mount, and I think Chelsea wanted too much for him. He was in his last year of his contract.
60 million they wanted, or something.
Yeah, that's what he went for United for. Yeah, so
a lot of money.
In the end, Liverpool discovered the release clause of Szoboszlai during talks, as it was put to me at the time, over Fabio Carvalho, funnily enough. And then it was a clause that was expiring in late June, so they didn't have a long time to think it over as such. And I think Jörg Schmacker actually said at the time, the acting sporting director, that he felt Liverpool were paying too much for him at the time, but Klopp knew he needed midfielders and needed good ones in, and the green light was given, and he comes to Liverpool, and at the time he would have been third or fourth most expensive at the time. Starts like a house on fire, doesn't he? Has a really good first half of that season. Gets injured against Newcastle, I think, on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
And then tails off significantly in the second half of that season. But under Arne Slot, he's been exceptional, really, playing in a number of positions, and at the moment, it's probably been Liverpool's player of the season.
He's got everything you want to be a Premier League midfielder, hasn't he?
Yeah, everything. And he's probably the first name on the team sheet at the minute. In it,
you just don't know what position it is.
Yeah, exactly. In a variety of roles, which I'll be honest, I didn't see coming. I didn't see the right back thing coming. I know he did it in pre-season, but I thought it was maybe just to get a bit of game time or whatever. But you're now in a situation where they're playing Man United. Well, they will be playing a game against someone like United coming up at the time of recording, and you're seeing him as a viable option to play in a game like that at right back. So yeah, it tells you everything about him, and I think his attitude's been very good. He's perhaps someone who, when he was coming in, we were perhaps told a story of, he's perhaps a bit, almost like more like a winger, a bit, perhaps is he going to work hard enough? But he never stops running, does he? That, for me, one of the images of last season is him on the ground. Was it
City
after the City game? Exhausted, that the effort he'd put in, he'd scored in that game as well, and that to me felt like the game that the league was pretty much sewn up, and he was at the centre of it. So yeah, he's been a great signing.
The thing that makes me laugh about that City image is that was, I think he run something like 11.2 kilometres or something that game, and it was only the second most that he'd run. So yeah, I was wondering, what game did he run more than that one? Because he was absolutely everywhere, and like you say, so integral to that win. Playing in the sort of box midfield.
Hit.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I think we're going to be fairly straightforward on the next two. Alisson Becker, £65 million from Roma. That was in July 2018. At the time, I remember thinking, that's a lot of money for a goalkeeper for a club that doesn't spend a lot of money on a lot of players. Good value for money in the end, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember reading a quote from, can't remember who it was exactly, someone in the Roma team who described him as the Messi of goalkeepers, and I think he's proven himself to be that, hasn't he? Obviously has the caveat now as he's getting older, a bit of the muscle injuries that are creeping in almost.
It's only one muscle.
Annually now, yeah, the hamstring muscle. But, what an absolute world-class goalkeeper he is. He finished second, was it, in the Yashin votes recently in the Ballon d'Or. Could have easily have taken top spot. Liverpool's best goalkeeper since Bruce Grobbelaar.
He's probably better than Bruce Grobbelaar. So he's probably Liverpool's best goalkeeper since Ray Clements.
Ray Clements, yeah. They're the three, aren't they, in terms of all time?
Yeah, the modern era, yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Just, I think, proof that sometimes it just pays to go out and get the best one. You can, and they'd had the situation with keepers in the previous few years with Mignolet and Karius and going back before that as well.
Well, Klopp used to not think that goalkeeper was that important, did he?
Yeah,
until he realised that it actually was.
I think there's generally been a change of thinking, though, in football in general over the last decade of how important goalkeepers are.
How they've always been important. They're literally the only people on there that are allowed to handle the ball and make saves and stuff like that. It always baffles me when they think goalkeepers aren't important, because going back years and years and years and years, they always say good goalkeepers worth about 12 to 15 points a season.
Yeah, you look at all the iconic teams in the Premier League and you always know the goalkeeper.
Well, the thing is, there's never been a Premier League team that's won the Premier League with a poor goalkeeper.
Ederson for City when they won 4 in a row. Obviously Alisson now 2-time Premier League winner. All these top teams have always had top goalkeepers.
Even when Leicester won it, Kasper Schmeichel.
Alisson was just different from the start, wasn't he? Do you remember he dinked that ball over Glenn Murray's head?
Yes.
Was it his first home game or second home game? He had made that error at Leicester, hadn't he?
Yeah.
perhaps just before that were around there, and so you're a little bit like, oh, okay, what we get into here? But even with the errors, and he still makes some now. Even with the errors, you know, you've just got to think how many points he saved them over the years, how many trophies he's won them over the years.
Has there been a better goalkeeper 1-on-1?
No, I don't think so. No, it's uncanny how often he seems to come out.
You can almost see it in the face of the opposition player running through. They're like, oh, hang on.
Yeah, I don't know what it is that he does specifically. I'd love to hear a goalkeeper coach's take on how he handles those. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned there about these sorts of individual mistakes. You can almost forgive them every now and again because they're not tactical mistakes. Yeah. You know, you'd be a bit more worried if he's making more tactical errors that might only be smaller things.
Are we going to talk about the goal as well? At West Brom.
Oh, the goal at West Brom. I was there.
Were you there?
I was there, I was there. Thought Nat Phillips had scored at first before I was tweeting it. It's like, I can't. Oh, he has. Oh, my God. Yeah. It was funny.
Absolute textbook, wasn't it?
It was literally, and it was like Liverpool's last game and the last goal of that lockdown era as well. So what a way to sign off. You know, it's almost, I'm not saying it was worth all that traipsing around empty stadiums for me and Paul, but it was quite funny. Like,
yeah, and I thought it was very sort of poignant how he sort of dedicated it to his dad, and he passed away a couple of weeks earlier, and what a remarkable moment that was in recent Liverpool history.
Well, also, if he doesn't score, they probably don't qualify for the Champions League, then they don't get to the final, and then it kind of everything goes on from that. So he was in that sense. So are we saying hit by any chance?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, yeah.
I think we might say hit for the next one. Virgil van Dijk, 75 million from Southampton in January 2018, and not a little less in July 2017 as it was going to be until things went a little bit, there was a little bit of a turnaround there from Southampton. I was about to say something sweary then, but they were less than pleased with some of the actions, what they perceived from Liverpool, and fortunately it all got sorted in the end. But you mentioned then about strikers being scared when they're through on Alisson. There's been so many times where we've seen strikers looking up and seeing there's Van Dijk in front of them, just going, oh, I remember there was Traore at Wolves where he just, even though he's like so fast, rather than try and get past him, just tried a shot from about 40 yards, which went miles away.
There was that one. There was Lautaro Martinez against Inter in the San Siro.
That's right, yeah.
Sissoko Spurs.
Yes.
He just let him have a shot.
That was just brilliant defending that, because he sort of worked out that Son is the more dangerous player, so let him shoot on his weaker foot over the bar. Liverpool win the game. There was another one that I'm thinking of, Haaland against Salzburg.
Oh yeah,
there was another one of those. I mean, Van Dijk at his peak, he had them all 10, and probably still does, doesn't he? You know, but what a player. 2 years left on his contract, of course. The greatest centre back I've ever seen at Liverpool, no question.
I think he's probably the best centre back I've seen for anyone.
Just ever. Playing football, yeah.
And there's been a lot of good ones.
Yeah, I think he's probably that for me as well. I think he. And then in his later years, just the leadership that he shows and everything that he embodies. I know you two spend a bit more time with him than I do, but I did a thing with him about 18 months ago, and you're just hanging on his every word. You know, he's got this presence about him, and he's got this just this aura that probably comes in when the opposition players are up against him, and again, very similar to Alisson. It just goes to show that if you do push the boat out for these players that are surefire winners, really. You know, I mean, I think there was some, wasn't there? There was some sort of pushback at the time with the fee and everything, and people were questioning it. But I mean, you've only got to look. You're comparing it to just defenders who are signed for similar fees to sort of see what they got. And
do you mean Harry Maguire?
I do. Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah, he's just he's everything that this modern successful era has been built on, I think.
Wesley Fofana's another one. He was similar, if not more, wasn't he? I think you look at Van Dijk in terms of the price tag, and by the time he leaves Liverpool, if this is to be his last contract, he'll have done 10 years at Liverpool, 75 million, obviously 7.5 million a year.
Good maths.
For a club of annual revenues of 600 million upwards, it's
he can't leave. We'll have no one to speak to after the game.
No, don't leave it.
But he's another like Salah who's had to kind of transform his game. I think it was during certainly the latter part of 22-23 and the early part of 23-24. Remember, he got sent off at Newcastle, and there was one or two question marks being asked of him. He kind of got to adjust to the fact he wasn't quite as quick as he used to be. because that's what happens when you get a bit older, even for slow people like myself. And we get even slower. Even slower, yes. We're going backwards soon. And it took him a little time to get used to that, but then he did do, and you could see then that he had that kind of confidence back in his game where he could dominate games. I mean, it's like any footballer is that high standards that opposition fans will always pick out the mistakes because he's a centre back and he's bound to make them, and they go, I mean, there was that mad stat where he was like, no one's gone past him for it's like, who cares about that? It's just like, just keep the ball out. And when it comes to set pieces, he's such a threat going forward, but he's also so important defensively. I mean, we went to a game earlier this season at Newcastle where he was heading stuff away in the last 10 minutes, and that was always the thing about Liverpool, I thought, throughout the early 2000s, is that they needed a centre-back like that who could just dominate.
Yeah, it's Sammy Hippier-esque, isn't it? I remember Liverpool being awful at the back, really, and then he signed Hippier and on-show, and a lot of the ills were cured. But yeah, Van Dijk is transformational, really. You look at when he come in, Liverpool wouldn't get near the Champions League final without him that season when he comes in, and then obviously from there it's Madrid, they win the thing, and then they go and win the Premier League. So a lot of the recent success can be traced back to when he signed, really. Him and Alisson sort of within 5 or 6 months of each other. Just fantastic. And the period when he maybe wasn't at his best, that coincides with Liverpool's midfield basically crumbling, and obviously that invites more pressure from the opposition. So that's, once that was sort of reconfigured, no surprise that Van Dijk is back to his best with the leading the back line. Going to be interesting to see how it develops now with a new fullback pairing. New players to build those relationships with. We're still very much in the early days of that, but his body of work over the best part of what is it now 8 years has been almost perfect, really.
Hit.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think this is his last contract, by the way? Same with Salah. I can't see him sign another one after.
So he'll be 36 only when it's.
I think.
Yeah, maybe unless there's a little year extension.
Yeah, I was going to say there's more chance of him staying than Salah. It's definitely Salah's last one.
Yeah,
I think there's slightly more chance of Van Dijk. Yeah, maybe a year.
Right, so we've got 4 more to go. I won't do them in order because I want to deal with 3 right at the end because we can just go through them. But the guy who was the club record signing up until the start of this summer, Darwin Núñez.
It's a long time ago,
85. Liverpool committed to pay 85.36 million for him from Benfica. They beat Man United to his signature. Who did United sign instead? I can't remember.
Højlund.
Oh, that's right. Well, that went well.
Even worse.
Even worse. Wow. I think we know where this is going. June 2022. Now, Darwin Núñez, who won the Premier League.
Yep.
He got Liverpool to a League Cup final. Didn't play in it because he was injured.
Oh, he did that celebration when
exactly. He was rather popular for his running around and blocking people. But
it's what you want from £85 million.
Exactly.
This is going to be the definitive final Blood Red podcast discussion of Darwin Núñez, because we used to speak about him every single episode.
What I always said about Darwin Núñez is that halfway through the second season, I don't think there was any more debate of whether or not he was good enough to play for Liverpool, because I thought he was, and I think that season he was. But what I thought in the third season, last season, is that a new manager came in and played a completely different style of play. Well, not completely different, but different to what he's expected of him, and obviously he wasn't as effective, but he still had his moments, such as Brentford away.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. He scores 17, doesn't he, in Klopp's final season, and could have been closer to 30 had he stuck a few more of those sitters away. It was always the discussion, wasn't it, with Núñez, if he could just take a few more of those, get his goal tally up, his confidence levels up. And there was undoubtedly a player in there. You look at what he could do. He was incredibly quick, strong, a shot magnet, wasn't he? It was amazing the way that system worked to get him into opportunities where he could shoot. And whatever the tactical tweaks were on the slot, that very much had an impact on getting Núñez into those shooting opportunities, so he became less effective. And then you just saw his impact become more and more diluted as it went on. And it was already a case of he still needs to be doing a little bit more. So as it went on, he became a bit of a fringe player. One start in the Premier League in the second half of last season against Southampton at home,
which he scored and
wins a penalty, plays his part undoubtedly, but a bit more of a moments player rather than the sustained spell of control across games that perhaps Slot was looking for, and didn't really suit his style. So in the end, Liverpool got a good deal on a player who was, it was becoming obvious that he wasn't part of the plan anymore.
If they'd have spent 50 million on him rather than 85, would we judge him slightly differently?
Maybe, but maybe that's closer to his true value. He did almost, if you drew a centre forward, it kind of looked like him, and he had everything. And then you'd see these little snippets of what he did. Scored for Benfica at Anfield, didn't he? Maybe got 2, maybe? He definitely got 1.
He scored about 6, we were all offside.
Yeah, which again was a huge thing about him, wasn't it? He would.
Yeah, we should. If only there was clues.
Yeah, that was hugely frustrating about him, and that ultimately he will go down as just a very frustrating player. When you've seen all these gifts that he has, and he just do something. I mean, he headbutted the lad on his home debut.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more than frustrating, isn't it? That's just daft. So,
what I would say, to be fair to him, he didn't really repeat anything like that.
No, he didn't. Yeah,
so he did learn quickly on that.
He didn't headbutt someone twice.
No, he didn't. No.
Say what you want about him.
Yeah. He knows you can only really get away with headbutting somebody once.
Yeah, and he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He wouldn't lash in a bad tackle or anything, would he? He wasn't like that sort of player.
He was quite an emotive player.
Yes, yeah, and the trouble was, I think that would feed into when he was trying to take chances.
Yeah.
And there was probably nervousness there sometimes that would explain a lot of the way he'd snatch at shots. And his approach to finishing just seemed to be, I'm just going to whack this and let's see where it goes. And there would be a lot of hitting the post, wouldn't there? A lot of hitting the bar and things like that. So, I agree. That second season, there was definitely a spell where you thought, and then the start of that, there's 2 goals at Newcastle.
Yeah,
those incredible finishes, weren't they? And you're thinking like, wow, if he can just click and he can do this, then there's everything going forward there. But it just wasn't a piece.
That never really went away, did it? It was always if he can just do this, if he can just do that. What I would say is probably was one of the rare times when Liverpool signed a player that Jurgen Klopp pushed for more than other members of the recruitment staff. I'm not sure I've ever said this on a podcast, but I remember having a conversation with someone months before he signed actually, and it was just brought up as would there be any interest in someone like him? And it was, he's a good player, but we see him at someone like West Ham. And then 3-4 months later, Liverpool signed him for a club record fee. So, it was that particular transfer is the one that maybe marked the transition from Liverpool's move away from the data-led recruitment process that underpinned them across so many of those names that we've just discussed. And this was more of a Klopp falling in love with a player on the basis of the analysis, and that didn't quite work.
Well, it was one of the first post-Michael Edwards signings as well, wasn't it? I just realised I've spurred Darwin Núñez the hit or miss. Was he a hit or a miss?
Miss.
He was a miss,
yeah. Now, the other 3 are all players who've signed in the last couple of months. Hugo Ekitike is the 4th most expensive, 79 million from Eintracht Frankfurt. Florian Wirtz was briefly the club record holder, 116.5 from Bayer Leverkusen. And of course, Alexander Isak replaced him, 125 million from Newcastle. I'm not going to ask what you think of all of them. What I will ask, final question, is which one of those 3 do you think will be the bigger long-term success at Liverpool?
Good question.
Thanks. Should become a journalist, really, shouldn't I? Yeah.
I'd love to say Florian Wirtz because I think he's a fantastic player. You
can say him if you want.
But I just think for the price that he's come in at, I think Isak is going to have to be the main man who's going to be the top scorer once Salah leaves. So it's going to have to be him if Liverpool to be a success, I'd suggest.
So do you actually think that's who it's going to be, though?
Yeah, I mean, he's proven it. He scored, 43 Premier League goals in his last 2 seasons at a club like Newcastle. With respect to Newcastle, they're not dominating higher up the league as much as Liverpool are, so there should be more opportunities for him to score more goals.
Same question then. Wirtz, Ekitike or Isak?
I'm going to go with Wirtz, I think. I think there's obviously so much excitement about him when he arrived, and you can see it's all there. You can see he's a wonderful footballer, and yeah, we mentioned it earlier in the Salah section, but there is this post Salah world that they're looking at, and Isak will be the goal scorer in that. But I think Wirtz will be the best player in that, and I think he's going to be crucial to everything they're doing going forwards. He is just taking this little bit of time to settle in, but I think he is good enough that once he does, I think you'll see him be a real kind kind of first name on the team sheet, real huge player for this side going forwards. Isak will be there to score the goals, I agree, but I just think the creativity that Wirtz brings has a real... Once Liverpool unlock that, I think there's a huge difference in the team.
Well, I didn't think either of you would say Wirtz because I was going to say him. So you've surprised me there. So at least we're all in agreement at the very end. Thankful for that. Thanks for listening. Join us soon on our next Blood Red podcast. Cheerio.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.